You know, all these things could have led to a hard no from my part, and it would have essentially cost me, you know, $300,000 asset in the end of the day. What's up guys, it's Adam Martin coming to you from the Withdrawal Lounge today, and I'm gonna hijack Matt McKeever's channel. So today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about problem solving and the power of yes. So I recently wrapped up a VTB deal that's closing on August 31st. The whole way this deal came about was through saying yes and actually doing quite a bit of active problem solving. This property came to me by one of our flyer campaigns where I'm looking for private real estate deals. And the seller had a really unique position that I identified really early on in the deal, is that he actually had 100% equity in this property, and he was still taking on a cash flow negative position. So what I really wanted to do is identify from this seller, you know, what would make him sell at a price or set of terms that would be appropriate for me. And the price that he wanted initially was just way too high. Like, I knew it would never work in terms of a wholesale opportunity. So what I did is I zeroed in on his position, his why really, and his equity position in the deal, and just kind of walked through with him options that were available to us. So he initially proposed a 50% ownership stake in the deal, and I said, you know, right away I was kind of scared about that because of the lack of control, and I talked with Matt about it, and we both decided that having 50% of control is way less exciting, or at least 50% less exciting than having 100% control of the property. So right away went in and kind of addressed that issue with him. And I did it openly and honestly with him, and I just said, hey man, like, I'm really not super, and the other issue is that he wanted to live in the basement unit as well. So I said, you know what, I'm really not interested in buying 50%, because at that rate you're gonna still be living there, and I can't rent it out, all 5 bedrooms, to the students that I'm, you know, really hoping to use for the cash flow purposes. Because typically they've got shorter leases, so you can do a 1-year lease. If you get a bad group, you can kick them out after that year. If you get a good group, you can keep them around for the 4 years or however long that they'll stay. And so I presented that problem with him, and right away I was barraged by a set of problems. So, you know, number one, this is supposed to be his retirement nest egg. Okay, I get that, I'm with you. Number two, I don't want to move because it takes a lot of energy and I've got some physical disabilities. Perfect, still with you. Number three, I just don't really want to sell my house. Okay. And then like number four was that it was just basically relating to his inheritance. And so I was telling him, you know what, like right away, we just have to solve these problems. Let's work through them together. And I can't tell you how many hurdles I had to jump, how many times I had to just take control of the situation. And if you guys have been following me, you probably know I'm a huge fan of Grant Cardone. Something that Grant Cardone talks about is never saying no to your customers. Now that doesn't mean that your customers are always right, because they're not. Simply put, they're just not. But it means not saying no when you can just simply agree with their objection or their stall or their complaint and move around that by finding a solution and finding a way to say yes. So what I did in this case was I actually got fairly creative about it. Having talked to Matt before this meeting, I knew that Matt was willing to actually take on this guy as a tenant in one of his properties. So what I did was I identified the price range that would satisfy his cost of living after my payments to him. Because he's not working, my payment to him is basically all the income that he gets. So what I did was I proposed a certain down payment that would satisfy, it would be a large sum of money compared to what he has now, and then set a payment level that would allow him to live comfortably after paying rent to Matt and all of his cost of living expenses. So what I did really was I addressed the actual problems. Is he wanted shelter, he wanted an easy move, and he wanted to have basically a retirement plan. So what I proposed to him was a down payment that would cover his moving expenses and any other expenses like legal fees, just basically any fees that he would incur in moving from his house to this new rental, and then give him a bit of a buffer as well, because he was actually going into debt every month. So he was cash flow negative on the property, but also just in life. So I knew that right away a bit of a down payment would satisfy his need there. Next I had to deal with was the payment. and I had to set a payment that I could use that was still good for my cash flow purposes, but that would also satisfy his cost of living and give him some money to live on. Then I also proposed to pay him a little bit more than what he was asking. So initially he was asking $215. I offered to pay him $240 with 3% VTB. 3% VTB mortgage. So he's holding 96% of the mortgage at this point, just to himself. So there's no bank in between us. I just pay him directly the $1,250, 4% down. That's enough money for him to cover all of his costs and move comfortably. Really, after that, it was about finding shelter for him. So mid-negotiation, he wasn't having it because he's like, well, where am I gonna live? Where am I gonna go? What am I gonna do? And I just said, hey man, do you want to go for a drive? And he said, what do you mean? I said, get in the car. Let's go get in my car. We'll go drive around London. I'm going to show you 3 properties that I think are just incredible for you to live in. And I've already negotiated you a lower price on all 3 of them if you want, for whichever one you say yes to. And he just couldn't believe it. He's like, well, what do you mean? How do you mean you did that? I said, listen, my greatest mentor, Matt McKeever, has offered to do a bit of a deal for you, and so I can get you this lower rate if you can commit to this deal. And he was just blown away that I had taken that step for him. And so I drove around London. We looked at 3 distinct areas with 3 different, distinct, unique types of buildings. And he settled on one, which was actually the most ideal for us. But, I told him, hey, look, we've got a better rate on this. It's easy. The moving terms are on you. We're actually letting him move in 2 weeks earlier than what he has to pay on, just that he can move the stuff out of the way so that I can get in there and start painting and, do some flooring updates and actually fix up this rental. So it created a win-win where I found him a place to live. I also found him a referral from our lawyer for his new lawyer. I found him, his place obviously, but I also got him referral numbers for the tenants that were living there for where they could move to. I have referred him to somebody who can write him a will because he didn't have a will before and he was really concerned about that. I've sent him boxes. So boxes for moving, like just general packing boxes, I got those for him. I drove him, this is crazy, he needed to get a fuse or something for his e-bike, so I just drove him across town for that. He also was in such a bad cash position that he was minus $250 on a payment, so I wrote him, I gave him cash for $250 and got a receipt off my first payment when he'll actually have money. But all of these things could have easily gotten in the way of my deal and could have easily killed this opportunity for me. And what really kept me in the deal was the ability to solve problems and the ability to say yes instead of just saying, oh, well, the deal's dead, because it would have died so early on if I had just said, you know what, 215 is too much, because it was too much for the wholesaling opportunity. It was too much based on the tenants he has in there and how to get rid of them and him staying there. It was too much if we were talking him owning 50% of it. All these things could have led to a hard no from my part, and it would have essentially cost me, $300,000 asset in the end of the day. Because I'm getting this thing now for $240 plus 3%, so it'll end up costing me real cost, like just over $300,000 at the end of our term, at which point he's got a balloon payment, so he gets $100,000 in cash, which I can either pull out of whatever equity I have in other properties at that point, or I can just go get another first position from a big bank. Really, it just comes down to creating win-wins. Don't take no for an answer, and don't tell people no, because there's always an opportunity for you to solve problems and create yeses. And the same thing's gonna happen on this other VTB deal that I'm working on. At the end of the day, they wanted too much money. Again, they have 100% equity in the property, and really what they're looking for is an opportunity, and again, this is all about drilling down to their why, is an opportunity to get cash flow and some security. So that's what I'm gonna offer them. Again, 4 or 5% down plus cash flow over the next, let's say, 15 years. I guess really what I'm getting at is yes is the most powerful word you can use, especially in negotiations. If you're taking no or saying no, you're gonna kill your deal and you're gonna lose out on some great opportunities. So you need to leverage that, get on it. Don't take no at work, at home, in life. It's just not worth it. Like, the cost is it's so expensive not to do business. It's so expensive not to solve people's problems. You know what? And that's another thing Grant Cardone says is strangers have your money. And it's so true. Like, go out there, find the people, find out what their issue is, and find out how you can solve it. Even if that means driving them across town, loaning them money, doing whatever you've got to do, just do it. It's going to be so much better for you than waiting around and waiting, this analysis paralysis or getting caught up in the logistics of a deal. It's so important to just pull the trigger, go for it, create terms that are beneficial for both parties, but definitely find a way to get the deal done. Anyways, guys, that's a quick talk on problem solving and how I used it to get my first property with almost no money down and a very low, very attractive interest rate over a long-term period. Thanks for listening, guys. I'll turn it back to Matt McKeever. He can take over the next video and keep you guys interested. In the meantime, check us out. We're gonna do a big Vegas event. We've got OREC 2019 coming up, and you can always find me on my Instagram page at AdamJD Martin. Thanks for listening, guys.